Prof.Dariga. I am a teacher of public health and biostatistics course at Semey State Medical University, Kazakhstan. Today I am going to show types of study designs in research. Hopefully this lecture will be essential for you. Okay, are you ready? Now I am going to tell about observational and experimental studies. So, study design plays an important role in the quality, execution, and the interpretation of biomedical and public health research. Each study design has their own inherent strengths and weaknesses. Observational study designs are also called epidemiological study designs, are often retrospective and are used to assess potential causation and exposure-outcome relationships, and therefore influence preventive methods. Observational study designs include ecological designs, cross-sectional, case control, case crossover, retrospective, and prospective cohorts. An important subset of observational studies is diagnostic study designs, which evaluate the accuracy of diagnostic procedures and tests as compared to other diagnostic measures. Experimental or interventional studies are often prospective and are specifically tailored to evaluate direct impacts of treatment or preventive measures on disease. Each study design has specific outcome measures that rely on the type and quality of data utilized. Additionally, each study design has potential limitations that are more severe and need to be addressed in the design phase of the study. Okay, let's start from types of observational study, a case report and case series. In medicine, a case report is a detailed report of the symptoms, signs, diagnosis, treatment, and follow-up of an individual patient. Case report may contain a demographic profile of the patient, but usually describe an unusual or novel occurrence. Some case reports also contain a literature review of other reported cases. A case series is a systematic review of the interesting and common features of a small collection or series or case. It is an example of case report taken from PubMed. Nowadays, many professional journals are published rare or individual cases to share interesting facts with the readers and the audience. As an example, International Journal of Surgery of Case Reports, Elsevier. The second type of observational study is a cross-sectional survey. The cross-sectional survey is a study conducted at a single point in time. The cross-sectional survey is an appropriate design when the research question is focused on prevalence of disease, a present practice, or an opinion. The cross-sectional survey are useful for estimating the prevalence of specific factors or prevalence of disease at point time. In some instances, it is of interest to make comparisons between groups of participants, for example, between female and male. The cross-sectional surveys can be easy to conduct, are usually ethical, and are often large in size, to allow for estimates of risk factors, diseases, practices, or opinions in different subgroups of interest. Okay, in the given article, we can observe that the study design can be written in the title or can be described in the methods. Additional information for you, abstract is a short report about research. The next design is cohort study. Cohort study is a particular form of longitudinal study that samples a cohort, performing a cross-section at intervals through time. Some examples of cohorts may be people who have taken a certain medication or have medical condition. Outside medicine, it may be a population or animals that has lived near a certain pollutant or sociological study of poverty. There are two main subtypes of cohort study, the retrospective and prospective cohort study. The major difference between the two is that the prospective looks at phenomena that have already happened, while the prospective type starts from the present. It is flow chart of prospective cohort study, so prospective type starts from the present. Such studies are expensive and usually require a long period of time to generate useful results, so very expensive and difficult. Some studies have been running for decades, but are generating excellent data about underlying trends in the population. The prospective cohort study is a great way to study long-term trends, allowing the researcher to measure any potential confounding variables. But the potential cost of error is high, so pilot studies are often used to ensure that the study runs smoothly. For example, we might compare incidence rate of cardiovascular disease between participants who smoke and participants who don't smoke as a means of quantifying the association between smoking and cardiovascular disease. According to this table, people who don't smoke, they don't have cardiovascular disease, approximately 87%. People who smoke, they have cardiovascular disease in 15 cases out of 20. It is under 65%. It is a flow chart of retrospective cohort study. The retrospective case study is historical in nature, while still beginning with the division into cohorts. The researcher looks at historical data to judge the effects of the variable. For example, it might compare the incidence of bowel cancer over time in vegetarians and meat eaters by comparing the medical histories. It is a lot easier than the prospective, but there is no control, and confounding variables can be a problem, as the researcher cannot easily assess the lifestyle of the subject. A retrospective study is a very cheap and effective way of studying health risk of the effects of exposure to pollutants and toxins. It gives results quickly and the cost of validity, because it is impossible to eliminate all the potentially confounding variables from historical records and interviews alone. For example, suppose we wish to assess the association between multivitamin use and neural tube defection in newborns. We enroll a cohort of women who deliver live-born infants and ask each to report on their use of multivitamins before becoming pregnant. On the basis of these reports, we have an exposed and unexposed cohorts. We then assess the outcome of pregnancy for each woman. So, retrospective cohort studies are often based on the data gathered from medical records where risk factors and outcomes have occurred and been documented. A case control study is a type of observational study in which two existing groups differing in outcome are identified and compared on the basis of some supposed causal attribute. Case control studies are often used to identify factors that may contribute to a medical condition by comparing subjects who have that condition or disease with patients who don't have the condition or disease but otherwise similar. The case control study design is often used in the study of rare diseases, or as a preliminary study where little is known about the association between the risk factor and disease of interest. Compared to prospective cohort studies, they tend to be less costly and shorter in duration. The most important drawback in case control studies relates to the difficulty of obtaining reliable information about individuals' exposure status over time. Case control studies are often therefore placed low in the hierarchy of evidence. For example, in a study trying to show that people who smoke are more likely to be diagnosed with lung cancer, the cases would be persons with lung cancer, the controls would be persons without lung cancer, and some of each group would be smokers. If a larger proportion of the cases smoke than the controls, this suggests but does not conclusively show that the hypothesis is valid. To sum up, according to the given table, people who smoke have lung cancer in 15 cases out of 20, so it is 75%. It is an observational study, organized case control study described in methods, so researchers investigated the bone mineral density and prevalence of osteoporosis in chronic hepatitis B patients in comparison with health subjects. They assessed 148 chronic hepatitis B patients and control 148 healthy people. They conclude that chronic hepatitis B infection was associated with low bone mineral density and increased the risk of developing subsequent osteoporosis. A randomized controlled trial is a type of scientific, often medical experiment, which aims to reduce bias when testing a new treatment. The people participating in the trial are randomly allocated to either the group receiving their treatment under investigation or to a group receiving standard treatment as their control. Randomization minimizes selection bias, and the different comparison groups allow the researchers to determine any effects of the treatment when compared with no treatment group, while other variables are kept constant. The randomized clinical trial is often considered the gold standard for clinical trial. Also often used to test the efficacy or effectiveness of various types of medical intervention and may provide information about adverse effects such as drug reactions. It is an example of published article. Scientists can illustrate flow chart of organized randomized clinical trial for easily understanding information. So I would like to tell extra information about ID account in ORCID. Well, what is it ORCID? ORCID is a non-profit helping create a world in which all who participate in research, scholarship and innovation are uniquely identified and connected to their contributions and affiliations across disciplines, borders and time. If you have articles, you will be able to register there as a young scientist. Good luck! Thanks a lot for paying attention. Goodbye.